Welcome back to another episode of Nuanced Nonsense. We're not experts, but we just like talking. This is your co-host, Alex.
And this is your other co-host, Ben. And today brought on two high school friends, Jierui and Michelle. And Michelle is having Wi-Fi issues, so she appears as just like a number. So yeah, would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Okay. Hi. Hi, I'm Jierui. Ben and I went to Plano West together. EP Bio. Recently graduated and back home in Plano, Texas.
Yeah, I'm Michelle. I went to high school at Jasper with Ben, CYLC with Alex. I just graduated from Columbia, and now I'm back home in Plano, Texas. Exciting.
Yeah, dude.
Ooh, P-Town. Let's go.
Yeah, dude, we brought on the smart bunch today. But yeah, typically start off with we typically start off with like a softball question, and today it's going to be what are hobbies that like you've been doing more ever since quarantine, or like you picked up in quarantine?
Yeah, so Michelle and I have been doing like a 2-hour art session every weekend. Kind of regular. We hope to make it regular, but it's been nice getting back to some of the more traditional mediums we did in high school and maybe early college. But if Michelle wants to talk more about that.
Yeah, I feel like for me at least, I kind of stopped doing art for fun when college started and when high school was ending. And so that was just always something I wanted to get back into, but I was really discouraged by it because it takes a lot of time and effort, and I just like did not have that energy. But yeah, since quarantine, I've had like nothing to do, so I've gotten back into it. It's been really fun and I think very fulfilling and reminding myself that I have hobbies again. Yeah. What about you guys?
Nice. Some hobbies, honestly, I think this podcast has been a hobby that we've been really getting into. I mean, I think at least definitely in like the earlier parts of summer, like June and July, Ben and I were like recording episodes like twice a week. And then, we also had prep sessions. So it would be like 4 out of 7 times out of the week we were doing something with the podcast. Or I remember one week we had 3 guests. So it was literally 6 out of 7 times of the week. And we were kind of getting into the groove of that. Some other hobbies that like I guess I was doing was I was doing some like home workouts over Zoom, so kind of like more calisthenic stuff. But yeah, I think that's basically been like the beginning of my summer. Also reading a lot of manga because I have much to do.
Yeah, speaking.
Wait, oh my gosh, I recently. Oh, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I got back into reading like books. Like, it felt like the last time I read and like sat down and read a book was in like middle school.
Yeah, related to that, I've been doing like a book club with several of my college friends, and it's been nice. I feel like almost more intellectual than I did in college, because in college I was just like, go, do this, and like keep on thinking about the next thing or finishing up the last thing. But now it's really like just take a period of time before bed or like right before book club and just read the book. And it's been nice. I think like when I was in high school or middle school and I loved reading, I never really talked about what I was reading with other people. So it's great to see what other people are thinking about a specific section.
Yeah. Do you feel like in college and even in high school when we were like super busy with AP classes, you kind of stopped doing things for fun?
Yeah, I feel like me personally, like, for example, like I stopped playing as much tennis. Like I used to play competitively and I like toned that down because I was like, oh, I need time to study, right? And I feel like just in general, like if it wasn't something that could be done quickly or like at convenience, like playing video games was like something I did for fun, but like that was like convenient to do because I didn't need to go anywhere or like do anything extra to do it. But in terms of like doing things like, for example, playing tennis, like I just toned those all down because it's just like, it was out of my way.
Yeah. I feel like in college, after like being so like mentally drained and having to put so much effort into every other aspect of my life, in my free time, I didn't want to like expend any energy at all. So I like actually stopped doing things and just started like, binging shows and stuff like that. Because those things take a lot less energy and effort than like something like drawing where you still have to like think about stuff.
Yeah. I feel like in high school I stopped doing things for fun, and I think in college I started doing that more, but it was more like exploring what other interests I had, and like I feel like exploring things and finding new things and learning new things was like kind of the hobby and interest for me. So I think right now I'm going back to some of like the older hobbies I've had before, maybe with like a new perspective or a new twist on it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I don't remember what hobbies I really had as a kid. I feel like, I remember playing with Legos a lot or like Transformers or whatever. But then that stops, like once I hit middle school. And then I feel like in middle school, like I was kind of like behind, like educationally. Like I just wasn't like very good at math. So then like I had to catch up at least to like the standard of my peers. So I feel like, yeah, life wasn't super fun anymore. Like I remember I used to, I would also read a lot of books like, I don't know, like Percy Jackson or whatever. Um, then I stopped. And then I guess I would kind of read manga also in middle school and like definitely a lot more in high school. But then, yeah, I just remember there was one point, I think junior year, where I was like, all right, I have to like study hard for like SATs or like AP exams. So there's no more time for fun. And that kind of extended to college too, because I feel like in college, it was definitely a lot more about like, how can I build my career and like, how can I make sure I'm like making the most out of my time here versus like just like having fun on this journey in college. So yeah, I remember for the longest time actually, I was like, do I even have any hobbies? Like, who am I really? Like having like this kind of existential crisis. And I remember even like the topic of hobbies to me was just more like, oh, how does this like fulfill like an image of like what it means to be an adult versus like actually using this as an outlet to like rest and re-energize after like you're at school or work. So I think it's only been like kind of recently where I'm actually trying to think of like what are hobbies that I like to do, not like hobbies that I think will like add to something I talk about if I talk to like a recruiter or interview or like somebody to make myself feel like I'm not just bumming around. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely felt that really strongly as well, because in high school I think I started doing art more for like to boost my college apps and for like competitions than like actually doing it for fun. So I'd always be thinking about like what's the most original and like, I don't know, the thing I can draw that looks the best, that's most impressive, instead of like actually drawing what I wanted to draw. And then same thing in college. I really feel that instead of like doing things that I actually wanted to do, I did things that like looked good on my resume or like looked good in recruiters. So I could like talk about it in an interview, instead of like, I don't know, going out to eat some like weird food that no one knows. But but yeah, I definitely feel that there was a period of time where hobbies weren't exactly hobbies. They were more like, they became something to like show some sort of status or to like have some sort of image of me in other people's eyes instead of doing something that I actually wanted to do.
I actually have, so prior to me and Alex doing like paying each other back for like utilities and stuff, I was editing a friend's med school essays and she was asking me about like, should I like write about like this generic thing, like even though like I did it, or should I like try to find something else, right? And that just like boggled my mind, because I was like, even though it's like a generic thing, it's still something you did and is like a facet of you. So it's like she was trying to impress, right? She wants to stand out.
Yeah.
It's like, in terms of that, like what would you write about for like a med school essay? Or just an essay in general, right?
Oh, for me, for my college app essay, I actually wrote about a very generic topic, but I think it was like how I wrote it that like made it stand out. And so, yeah, on the topic of hobbies, one big hobby of mine since I was young was reading. So I just wrote about how much I love to read, which like sounds really generic, but I think you just have to like have your voice come through,
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I don't know if I feel like I understand what you guys are saying. I don't know if I like quite did that in like college. I feel like I like went to college and I kind of went a bit, there were too many choices, so many options. And I was like, I'm just going to try everything and do everything. And I didn't have like a career path in mind, which might be like biting me in the butt now. I don't know, or maybe pandemic's biting everyone in the butt. But I think like the first couple years, I just kind of did like whatever caught my eye and whatever was interesting. And I feel like later on, like, oh, I need to fit this into a narrative of like who I am, how I present myself to like companies or recruiters. And I think this like past half year, so it's been me like trying to figure out like what is my brand, what is my personal brand, like talking to like design mentors. They've been like, you have so much going on. This is like way too confusing for like someone who's just looking at you for like the first time. So like how do you like groom yourself and present yourself to like this neatly little like package box where people can like easily understand, oh, this is what you do. And I don't think I thought about it as much as I probably should have going into things. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a line between trying to present yourself in the best way, like for college apps or med school apps or like on your resume, versus like being genuine and true to who you really are.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like, I mean, I know like I guess like Jerry was kind of saying how like she was just like trying a lot of different things and then thinking about the narrative later. But I think like looking back, like that's kind of something like I wish I did in college, because like I knew at least freshman year like we had a lot more free time compared to like the later years of college, and I feel like I was just so concerned about like how do I jump from like A to Z versus like going just through the steps,
Yeah.
all the letters in between. And yeah, I just feel like, kind of what Michelle was talking about earlier when like she said that she wrote like something like a generic topic. It was like what mattered was like her voice was coming through, and like it was like as long as it meant something personal, like people can tell like you're being genuine about it, right? And something I wish like I did was like not worry about like how to fit like how to check off stuff to make myself look like I'm genuine versus like just being genuine and just like doing stuff, because I feel like the narrative and story will kind of just come along if like you truly gain something out of it.
Yeah. I mean, for my friend, when writing her stuff, that's what I told her. I was like, it doesn't matter what it is you're writing about. It's like, as long as it's like actually you and it's like you genuinely like write about it, I feel like it doesn't really matter if it's like quote unquote basic or generic or whatever. Like, it's still a facet of you, you know? It's like you can't just like erase that part of yourself because it exists.
Do you guys feel like there are certain type of writers who are like, let's say, good at writing these type of college and application essays versus like writers who are just good in general at other types of writing? Or do you think writing in general translates well across whatever purpose you're trying to use it for?
Personally speaking, when I applied for med school, like I feel like I write in a more narrative style because I feel like when I like going through high school, I like grew up writing short stories, like writing like for stories in general. And so what ends up happening is like when I have to write like more, I guess, professional essays. So like, for example, applying to college or med school or like something, like what ends up happening is that like I write in a very narrative style. I like, for example, starting my essays like in media res or like something where it's more like about the experience rather than about like telling like I learned X, Y, and Z, right? And so I feel like that could have not been as good. I feel like in terms of like writing professionally, it didn't translate over, but in general, that's how I like to write.
Yeah, my dad actually like brought this up to me once because I have a lot of difficulty writing emails and like business professional type writing. It's just like extremely awkward to me if I don't know how to communicate. And then I'm thinking back, like I'm also looking at potentially doing grad school and like looking at applications for that. I also not super great at that type of like personable like writing where it's like I'm showing my personality, I'm connecting with you. I feel like I'm better at like the more analytical, like looking at art history or whatever, like analyzing things type of essay. So I was just wondering, but like maybe I'm just not that great of a writer in general. Like maybe if you're a good writer, you can do both and other types of writing. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually thinking about this lately because my neighbor is applying for college and like she asked us to read her college apps and like recommend things to write about. And I was thinking about it and I was like, I really have no idea what I would write about for college. Like having gone through 4 years of college and looking back, the me in high school, like trying to present myself as like I'm perfect for this college was very, very misguided, and I don't know what I would write about even now to get into Columbia. I think college admissions places a lot of emphasis on, like, can you write in this really flowery, very meaningful way and tell like a very profound message about yourself when you're only like 18 years old and you haven't even lived like that much life yet. Like you haven't even experienced many things yet. And I think like too much emphasis is placed on that, and like college or high school seniors trying to like look deeply into themselves and like find that and express that for college apps is, I don't know. I just don't think that it's like a very good process for determining who's like the best fit for college, is like who's the best at writing profoundly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I feel like in high school, or even like everything like pre-college, like I was definitely, you know, a kid who was just, you know, in like his bubble, and like his parents like kind of just looked after like everything like I did or oversaw. So like there was no way like I could even like introspect or even think about like who am I or what do I stand for. And like it kind of just felt like, at least in high school for the college admissions process, like everything was a game, you know, like you had to
Yeah.
your high SAT or ACT, maybe SAT2s, get high AP scores, you know, do like volunteer work that you don't particularly care about. It looks like you have a soul. And it's like stuff like that where it's like, it's interesting because like technically, I guess, at least for the volunteer work, like that is like the right thing to do, but it's like meaningless if like you're doing it for like a result.
Yeah.
Versus like, you know, actually caring, right? And I think like going back to like your question about writing, I feel like in high school, like that's like I lost the love and desire to read or write because it felt like everything was so gamified. Like I remember like at least in like AP literature or Lang or whatever, like you had to write in a certain structure, and like it makes sense like looking back, like I think that's just like the proper structure of an essay or whatever. But it just, to me, it just felt like I was just being punished for like not sticking to a format, and if I couldn't think of like how to write in that format quick enough in the like timed essay format, like I just wasn't good enough for like English or like liberal arts. And to me, that's like when I was applying to college, I was like, I don't want to even like consider this as a possible career path because it's just like not my innate ability, or it's like too subjective, right? And that's something I kind of actually regret, because I think looking back in college, I definitely learned to appreciate like the liberal arts and like what they kind of do to like they literally add entertainment to our lives, and it's literally like culture, right? Like without like, you know, Shakespeare or whatever, like there's nothing to really look back on if everything, you know, is just like mathy and sciencey stuff. So like, I kind of wish, like looking back, like in high school, that like I guess education wasn't so like systematic or like gamified, and you like had to do things to reach a certain point.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have experience with grad school admissions, but do you think it's different for grad school rather than like being so systematic and for college? And then I don't know. I thought college admissions, looking back, are kind of hypocritical. Like it's like, as you said, very gamified, very like systematic. You have to hit these things, but then you also have to be unique while like adhering to all these other things at the same time, you know?
Yeah, well, I've just started looking at the process, so I haven't done it. I think Ben's done this.
Yeah, like I went through the whole process of applying to med school, and it's just like it feels like the same thing as applying to college, but with higher stakes, because it's like less people get in, like less people apply, and so it's like and also it's like you interview in like person with these groups, and so it's like you see the faces of people who like do or do not get in, right? And so it's like it's like I feel like they want to be more genuine and more humane about the process, but I think what ends up happening is that you adhere to a formula even more strictly. I think there's like a lot of like stereotypes and memes about like pre-med students like have high GPAs and trying to like, you know, check off all this thing. They have no free time because they're just trying to do this, that, and this. And I feel like in college, because I didn't adhere to the formula, I kind of did what Jierui did, in the sense of like I was just doing whatever like I wanted to do. Like one of the things being like I just like got really into social dance, and I was like a TA for that, and I like used my time doing that instead of like doing like volunteering or like hospital stuff or like shadowing more, like stuff like that. So it's like I feel like I got punished for not adhering to the formula. And even though my interviewers were like, oh, hey, that's really cool and really unique, like, it's just like, I think there's some level of like, they do want you to adhere to the formula enough, but appear genuine and unique at the same time.
Oh, yeah, definitely sounds kind of hypocritical.
Yeah, and I think that depends on like your career. Like, I feel like obviously med school, there's probably more like rigorous and very systematic method for how applications work. But I will say for like some of the design grad programs I've been looking at, like I'm like trying to reach out to alumni and like talking to them because all of them are just kind of so different in their structure and like fellowships available and how classes are taught and like, studios. And even though they're all like design, but like what kind. So I think maybe if it was a more, I guess, depends on the field is what currently I would say. I feel like for me, it seems like you need to have the difference from like college, undergrad to like grad. It seems like you need to have a better idea of what you wanted to do. Whereas like, I think when I was applying to college, it's like, who are you? And like, what do you enjoy? But now it's like, what's your point of view? What do you want to achieve? And like, what do you think is like the best way to achieve it? And how have your like past experiences informed this like path that you've chosen? So it's like, I have to think more about like, what is my life goal? What is life? So, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do y'all feel like at least 22, around that age, do you think that's like normal to have it all figured out? Because like I feel like definitely when I hit senior year, I was like, dude, I was kind of just dicking around the first 3 years, like with school or, just like being lazy. I was like, do I really have 1 year to figure all this stuff out? And I felt like so overwhelmed. But like when I talked to a lot of my peers, it seemed like we were all going through the same thing, or they also didn't really think about it yet. But I was just curious to see like, what are your thoughts? Because maybe like it was just like my friends feeling a similar way.
Wait, actually, yeah, I feel like college is too short. Maybe it's because it got cut short by Corona. But I was like, I am not ready. I feel like there were things I wanted to do I haven't had a chance to do. And there was more I could have learned. Yeah, it just feels too short.
Yeah, I really feel like the exploration process is really short. And I think what should have happened is we should have started thinking about this in high school. But in high school, we were too busy, like, trying to get into a good college and things like that, when we should have been thinking about, like, oh, what are the things that I enjoy and what skills am I good at that I can, like, turn into a career possibly, or, like, trying to find what you enjoy. But I remember after I got into college, I realized I had no idea what I was doing in college. And I spent 4 years in college trying to figure out, like, what I'm doing in college and what I'm doing in life. And every time I feel like I figured it out, I really haven't figured it out, and I still don't think I figured it out. So yeah, definitely still feeling very lost. But I think I'm at the point now where I don't really think about it that much. Like, I don't think about where am I going to be in the next 5 years or so. I kind of just go with things and see where life will take me now.
Yeah. I also think like 22 is a very young age. Like in terms of life expectancy, that's only 1/4 of your life. And it's like, in terms of legally, like you're only 1 year removed from being able to drink. Like being able to drink at 21 is like, they think your brain is mature enough to like withstand the side effects of alcohol. But it's like, it doesn't mean your brain is fully developed enough to like think about all of these things. Like, I think it's just like, it's insane to like have it figured out so early. Like if you do, that's amazing, right? It's like you're committed very early on, but it's like, if you're not, it's just like, it feels like college is like your last sort of like save point before like everything is just like opened up to you. And it's like, you got to figure it out from there.
Yeah. I will say though, I've talked to some people who've like worked and then now are back in grad school. And I think they are still like looking for what they want, or they've worked for many years and worked up like a career ladder, but wanted to switch to a different field. And yeah, I think it'll just be like a continual process of iteration. Maybe we're more lost at this point, but I'm going to be like a downer and be like, we'll be lost for a long time, maybe until retirement.
I also feel like this is most unfair for pre-med students, because in order to like, be pre-med and get into a med and like even finish your pre-med requirements, you have to know that you want to do medicine since like freshman year of college, since very early. And how are you supposed to know that? Like, what if you're in med school and you're like, oh, I actually don't want to do this at all, then what are you supposed to do then, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's yeah, also like kind of branching off like what you said is like basically like if you're pre-med, you come in with the expectation that you have these all 4 years figured out, meaning that in high school you already figured out like what your life goal is. And like if 22 is too early, then like 18 is definitely too early, right? And like the years building up to that. Yeah, it definitely like doesn't really seem fair. I was also gonna add that like I feel like just going to college itself is such a big adjustment because like if you're especially if you're like moving like away from home, then like you spend at least a year or maybe two just like kind of figuring out like what type of community do I want to have in college, adjusting to like not living at home or being with like the people who you knew growing up, and that's already like 2 years, and then you have like the other like 2 years left of college where you're just like, all right, time to capitalize on this, and then you get kicked out. And especially for like our year where it's just like it just cut off randomly in March, and usually it just feels like okay, things are building up to like a formal goodbye, and like when like I will probably last see a lot of my friends, but then um it became like, oh, like I thought this is the last time I saw someone, and I didn't even think of it like that, and it just like kind of disappeared. Like our relationship is kind of just up in the air now.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like having that one chance to meet someone again could be the difference between, oh, I'll talk to you like during quarantine and then for a while after and we'll keep up this relationship, or just like we'll forget because we're all busy with PSETs and then we just won't talk to each other for a very, very long time. Like I've been thinking about this because there have been like trips I was gonna go on to like meet people in other countries, like in not for this year, but like freshman year, that like my parents were like, danger, you can't travel by yourself. So I never went on them and I never met up with like those people, and now I don't talk to them. So I'm like, if I had met them that one time, would that have made the difference between us being able to sustain like a relationship over the internet versus just not talking to each other? Obviously not like a close friends relationship, but yeah.
Yeah, I was also thinking about like that. Like, how do you guys keep in touch with people during quarantine and like after college? Because for me in college, I had a lot of friends who I was friends with by like proximity and by convenience, like people I worked on PSETs with and people I saw like walking around during class. And just like, people in my friend group who I like wasn't that close to, but like, I enjoyed hanging out with and I enjoyed talking to. And they weren't people who I, DM'd regularly or like had conversations with regularly, but I still would like to like keep in touch. I just feel like I don't really have anything to say, and especially since I don't see them in person now, it's like hard to strike up a conversation.
I actually have something to say about that. So like I feel like I encountered this problem kind of like in college. So it's like in freshman year, like I went in with this idea. It's like, oh, I want to meet a whole lot of new people. I want to like get out of my like little bubble. I want to sort of like branch out, right? So I ended up getting into like this friend group in freshman year, and we hung out a bunch. And I think part of it was it's like due to convenience, right? Because we're all in the same dorm. It's super easy. You just like walk down a flight of stairs and then boom, you're in the lobby, and then like boom, everyone's there, right? And so like I feel like when we moved out of the dorms in sophomore year, and it's like things you have to become more intentional about it. It's like it's no longer just on a flight of stairs. It's more along the lines of like, hey, what time and date? And it's like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Like XYZ, right? And then that's when it's sort of like, I wouldn't say it fell apart because we're still friends today, but it's more along the lines that like it hit like a rough patch and like we weren't as intentional. And it's like proximity is what kept us together, like proximity and convenience. And then that's when we realized like, hey, you really need to go out of your way. You need to like put time and energy into maintaining these friendships. And so like from that, we like in junior year, we rebounded and we're like, okay, like we actually need to like get back together like on a more regular basis. And it's like, we need to like reestablish that like, even though we're all busy, like we need to like take time out of our schedules to like be with each other if we care about each other, right? And so to sort of like build off of that, I feel like a lot of it is like intentionality, or at least that's how I see it, is like you have to be really intentional with like people you want to interact with. And sometimes like you can be intentional with someone and they're not back. Like they're not obligated to be reciprocating to you. And so I feel like sometimes it's just like, it is what it is, but just like in general, I feel like if you're intentional, then it'll like more times than not, it will play out in your favor.
Yeah, I think that's something I kind of struggled with going into college, because I felt like in high school, a lot of my friendships were like by proximity, and that doesn't mean I still don't talk to them, but like the way that we connected was through like shared experiences where we did things together every day. And I felt like in college, I was doing like things differently from a lot of my peers, so I didn't see people like all the time in classes. Like there wasn't this common thread, and my closest friendships were with people like in my living group, but it was like across all years. So once people started leaving, it was kind of difficult for me to like adjust and like find new friendships, because I've never been like really deliberate about it, but I think now it's like a learning process, figuring out how to be more deliberate, like learning, training myself to be like, I need to reach out to people, I need to like check in with people constantly, and like ingraining that habit, which I don't really have, and I guess it's a good time to practice that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's being intentional with people was something that was really difficult, because I think growing up, like I wasn't super intentional and people weren't super intentional with me. So then I think my only relationships with people were just like, hey, what did you get on WAP? Or like, you send the WAP notes or something. And then I was just like, yeah. And then like, that was the only expectation, right? And then like, I didn't even hang out with people outside of class. And when I found out people were hanging out outside of class, I was like, dang, TFTI, but then I realized like, I mean, I never invested in those relationships, and it's like, you can't really expect that to happen back to you naturally, right? And I think going to college, like, there's something like I also struggled with, because like, I guess I was coming to terms with that idea that like, oh, like in high school, all my friendships were kind of transactional in a way, where it's just like how can I be of use to someone, and how can they be of use to me in terms of like school? And for the longest time in college, it kind of felt that way too, with like a lot of classes, because like I was CS, so then you basically reach a point where like you need other people to help you, unless if you're like a genius. So I would always think like, okay, well, we only talking because like we need help on this program because we're not smart enough to do it by ourselves, or like would we actually talk like outside of these like study sessions or whatever, right? And I think when like quarantine hit, like I think there was a little bump where like I think everyone was like more intentional. They're like, let's go on Zoom, let's play COVIDopoly or these other games, right? And I think over time though, like, you know, people got used to it, and like then I think the amount of group chats or individual conversations I had with people like faded. And I think I talk to less people now, but it's like definitely a lot more intentional, where like I'll at least try to update something from my day, and they'll also as well, and like we'll also just talk about like how we're feeling and like being more vulnerable and stuff like that. And I think that's definitely a journey, because like I wasn't really used to like having intentional conversations like over text, but I think that's something like I've been trying to adjust to as the new norm.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been trying to like work on also. And I definitely feel that starting out in college, I did not know how to like be a social person. I do think of like myself as a pretty social person, but in terms of like, you know, keeping up with friendships and like being intentional with people and like just hanging out with people, like seeking to hang out with them rather than like accidentally hang out with them. Those are things that I learned how to do in college. And yeah, that was definitely a learning process. And I kind of wish I went into college already knowing how to do those things. I think it would have made my experience like a lot brighter and more social. But I think going to college, like you shouldn't expect the best years of your life to be in college, because that's, I think, where you learn about yourself and you learn how to like function in society.
Yeah. We actually had a conversation about this on a previous episode, and it was talking about like, it was just, what are your thoughts on this? So it's like, she was saying that like you pay for college not for the education, but like the soft skills that they give you, like the friendships you make, like the people you meet.
Yeah, I feel like I agree. I feel like technical skills, you can learn that on your own. You can teach yourself. But I feel like the relationships you create and kind of like broadening your worldview, I think that's where college comes into handy. Do I think it's for the right price? probably not.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, wow, we're really spending $10,000 or more. Like at least 10,000 was like the UT tuition or whatever. I was like, we're spending $10,000 to make friends and become adults. And I was like, But yeah, I definitely agree that college should not be the best 4 years of your life. I remember thinking that freshman year because the transition for me freshman year was really hard. So I was like, dang, if these are the best 4 years of my life is going to suck. But then I think even as things got better, I was like, yeah, I think college is definitely a transitionary time where like I think that's the first time like maybe for a lot of people like you learn to like introspect and like care about your mental health and like seek goals in your life versus like just like having like I guess a whole like plan or task set for you. And I think if that's really the best 4 years of your life, like that's also really sad because you graduate at 22, so it's like 60 years of misery. So,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it could be the best 4 years of some people's lives if they choose, but I feel like I just disagree with the concept of having like, this will be the best 4 years. Like, this is the dream college. This is the dream job. Like, everything changes, and I feel like when you set an expectation for yourself like that, you're just setting yourself up for like disappointment and failure. And I don't agree that there's just like one thing that's going to make you happy. No.
Yeah. And what's really crazy is that a lot of people go into college with like this mentality, not necessarily that it's going to be the best 4 years, but it's like, I'll meet my lifelong friends. Like I'm going to find community. I'm going to like figure out my path. Like there are a lot of people that don't figure out their path even after college. Right. And so it's like, there's also these sub expectations set up as like a result of like, this is going to be the best 4 years of my life. And I think that's like really unfortunate because it's like, it's like when you don't meet like your friend group or your community or you don't meet your lifelong friends, you get really disappointed. You're like, I feel like college was a waste. But then it's like, then you start to like forget about like the good things that happen to you or maybe like just things that happen to you in general, right? Because you can learn from everything.
Yeah. What is it like? Undersell, but there's some phrase for like setting low expectations, but like achieving above and beyond that. Undersell but over deliver. That's it.
Ooh, wait, that's solid.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of how I work. But on the other hand, I feel like that's like personally, I'm like I do that, but also am I underselling myself a lot when I talk to people face to face? Should I be more, I don't know, not boastful, but like more assertive or proud of? Yeah.
Yeah. I also feel like it was just in college where I started being aware of what people around me were doing. Because in high school, like, I just did my own thing. I didn't care what other people were doing, But in college, I would always, like, be comparing myself to, like, oh, this person, like, looks like they're having so much more fun and, like, has their life more together and has everything figured out versus me. And then I would feel very lost. But the thing is, when you actually talk to the people, you realize they feel just as lost as you do. It's just that other people like appear, or like maybe you yourself even appear to be like put together and friendly and social and have your life like wonderful. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think social media became much bigger. I don't know, but for me, it became much bigger in college. Like I made a Facebook in 10th grade. So I think throughout I just was not aware of this online sphere and like what people did on there. But I think now I have a greater window into people's lives, and I don't know if I like that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think something like really big for me was like I think a lot of people kind of talk about how like Instagram can be very toxic. Like you compare how many likes this person may have versus how many likes that you have and like how much fun they're having. I realize like LinkedIn is kind of toxic for me. I'll like scroll through LinkedIn and I'll see all these people like I'm working at Uber or I'm working at whatever. I co-founded my own startup and I'm just like looking at myself and for at least for the longest time I could not find an internship until like the summer between junior and senior year. And to me that was like a big source of insecurity because I felt like I was behind. And then whenever I see LinkedIn, I would feel like so much more like self-hate, like, oh, like look at these people, like they're go-getters, and then you're just like, kind of sitting on your ass, moping about not having an internship. And then it was just like an endless cycle. And then recently I kind of found myself doing that again because now it's full-time. Like thankfully I do have a full-time job now, but there was always like this kind of stigma in CS where like, you want to work for a tech company and like impact the world or whatever, or do you just want to work at like some bank or whatever? And I'm working at a bank. So then I was just like feeling that again. And at the time I said like, literally like this stuff doesn't matter. Like as long as you like, you're happy doing something you like, you know, your identity doesn't have to be in your job. And, you know, honestly, even working in tech is pretty stressful at the top companies. So just like snap out of it. So like sometimes I literally just have to like make sure I don't go on LinkedIn too much or like, you know, care too much of what other people are updating their lives on, because like I don't know what's going on in their life, but like, you know, what's good for them is like good for them. And I don't have to like, I guess compare myself or demean myself because like what's going on in my life isn't seemingly as good as what's going on in their life.
Yeah, I definitely feel that as well. So what happened with me is I'm in consulting and my start date got delayed to January. And that was something that I was like really bummed about at first. Like I see everyone else moving on to the next stage of their life and starting work and, you know, blah, 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 being real adults. And so for a while I had an internship just to like, you know, feel like I'm doing something with my life, like starting work, earning some money, things like that. But then the more I did my internship, I started thinking to myself, like, what's the point of starting work 6 months earlier? You know, I'm going to have the rest of my life to work and like, or the next like 40 years or so. So is there really such a big difference in these 6 months? And then I should use these 6 months, the 6 months of time that I don't have to work, I should use it to like, I don't know, learn more about myself or do things that I can do now that I can't do when I'm working, you know? And so that was a decision that I really came to peace with. But then on LinkedIn, I would see like, you know, everyone is like starting their job and working and like, I don't know, going to business school and going to grad school and stuff like that. And I constantly feel this feeling of like, I should be doing something productive to like advance in my career or like advance in my life. But I think, I don't know, I just really want to take a break. Like in my heart, I just want to take a break. I just want to like do things that I can do now that I can't do when I start working, because consulting is a grind also. Like I should take this time to chill. But I do think that being on LinkedIn and thinking about your career in grad school and all this stuff, it's kind of like a race. But what's at the end of the race? It's like nothing, you know? I think generally everyone will, as long as people are happy, they'll like end up in just about the same place in life, regardless of if you start your career at like a amazing company or if you start your career like 6 months earlier than someone else. It doesn't really matter in the long run, but we put so much importance on it in the short run.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel like you're... Oh, go on.
You were going to ask a question. You can go.
Oh, I was just going to ask Ben if he like felt the same way about grad school and like med school and stuff, because I only know about it from a career point of view. But yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah. I forget what I was saying. So Ben can answer.
I feel like it's like someone was telling me about this other day, and he also was applying to med school, but he was okay with like delaying like application. I was like, why? Like, this is already a long process. You don't need to like drag it out even further, right? And then his point of view is like, it's exactly as Michelle's, right? It's like, there's some things that's like you can only do now. And like, for example, it's like if you were trying to get into like some liberal art, sometimes you gotta like hit the nail on the head now, and waiting is just like losing opportunity, right? And so it's just like, he wants to like go do some stuff now. He's like, you know, when I'm on like this grind, like how am I ever going to like have time to do this thing that I wanted to always do when it's like I'm worrying about the next exam or the next like clinical or the next yada, yada, yada. And I feel like that's kind of like what I'm doing now. Like I'm okay with like just like doing stuff, figuring out myself now, because like it's sort of like, what does like starting and like finishing earlier like really get me? Like I get to work earlier, so what? Like I totally agree with Michelle. It's just like, it's just sort of like, it's a long commitment, and like starting earlier on such a large scale time is like whatever, you know? Like I think part of the reason why we put so much value in it now is because we're young, and it's like each year that we live, like let's say when you're 20, like 1 year is like 5% of your life. It is, 1 year has much more impact on like your total lifespan than like when you're like 50, right? especially like when you are so young, like let's say 2022, like your first however many years, you're not really like that conscious. You don't have that many memories. Like when you start like being aware of like your surroundings, you like start thinking for yourself. That's when you like, you know, like you start building your own like repertoire of like things that you like and things that you don't like. And so like they have much more impact because like that time is even smaller than just like how much time you totally lived. And so I don't know, like I'm a big proponent of like, if you want to go do something creative or like entertainment or just like not like STEM, like go for it. It's really like people will end up where they end up. Like as Michelle said, you'll probably be happy in the end.
Yeah. And I think I'm taking this time also to think about like what Alex said earlier, like your job isn't like who you are. So like what are the other things that compose my free time that define who I am? And like figuring out back to like the hobbies topic, like what are the hobbies I want to have like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Like we don't like what do I want to share with people who are going to like be in my life then? And how can I get good enough at it so that I feel comfortable doing it with myself and like enjoying it as opposed to like still learning about how to do it.
Yeah, I think kind of like thinking about like what y'all were saying earlier, I think a big thing about like why people, I guess, maybe feel ashamed about starting late or, you know, having to figure it out early is maybe like the idea of like youth, or like you don't want to, like I think the idea is like the best years of your life, like you should be young, or like the peak of your existence. Maybe that's a better way of saying it, is like in you're young, and when you get older, like you're kind of like over the hill. And something like I've been kind of thinking about since we graduated is that like, oh, now I'm out of college. Does that make me old? And then, well, I'm like, technically no, I'm not. But then I think there's always like, you know, you see in fiction a lot, there's always like those like villains who are just like, oh, I have to be immortal or whatever, you know? And like very much so like the idea is like you want to be young forever, right? And then I was kind of thinking about like, you know, instead of like trying to tell ourselves that like, oh, we're young at heart, we should just accept the fact that we're old, you know, at some point. And I think
for retirement, it's fine.
yeah, and I guess like to me, I was like, I feel like being okay with like being old or being behind is like probably a lot more productive, or not productive, but like maybe will help me be more at peace versus like trying to convince myself that like this, despite X, Y, or Z, like I am still young. Because I guess at the end of the day, we will all die eventually, and like regardless, you know, whatever age you are, whether you're young or old, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, and I think
that just got really existential.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Yeah, but I think in the past I've been living like for the future. Like I'm gonna plan this so that in the future I will be happy. And yeah, occasionally I've been like, oh, this is the future and I'm happy now. But I feel like now is the time to start more like living in your daily life and like appreciating like the smaller things. Like, oh, today it was 90 degrees and it was cool enough for me to go outside and like, oh, today my dog jumped on the chair and like sat with me for 30 seconds. It was really sweet. I feel like remembering these little things has happened more, whereas I think before it was like the big things. I'm like, oh, in like 3 months I will go this place and it'll be like amazing.
Yeah.
And then when I come back, I'm just like waiting for the next trip or like next event I'm gonna go to.
Yeah.
I definitely think quarantine has helped me live in the moment more, because I think for me, before, I used to have like all these life plans. Like I had my grad trip plan, and then I had like plans for what I was gonna do with like all my points during consulting when I'm traveling a lot and like stuff like that. And like, you know, I had a life plan. I was like, in this many years I will exit consulting and do this and stuff like that. But yeah, and then Corona happened and I don't even know where I'll be like in the next month. So yeah, definitely like learning to live more day by day has been something that I've been experiencing. And also it's been really nice, a lot more stress-free, I think. I think when you plan things and then things don't happen according to plan, it's very disappointing and stressful. So like, why not just not plan things anymore?
Yeah, I think something that me and Alex touch on sometimes like amongst our conversations between us is like the idea of being like results based or like process based, right? Like I think me and Alex kind of lean towards like thinking more about like the journey. Like for example, if your entire life goal is like, let's say, be a CEO, right? When you finally get there, you'll be happy, you know? But like it won't be like a fulfillment type of thing. You'll just be happy momentarily, and then it's like you reach the end goal, but then there's like nothing after. You know, your path is finally ended. It's like, let's say you're moving up the corporate ladder, you're like, damn, this sucks, damn, this sucks, damn, this sucks. Oh, I'm finally here, and you're like, oh, damn, you know, it should just make everyone below me feel bad. Like it's kind of like is not as rewarding as you had envisioned when like you thought of the goal in the past. And it's like, you know, if you don't care about like what happened to you on this journey, how can you really truly be fulfilled at the end if like, you know, it wasn't that good the entire time you were on the journey?
Yeah, I think like a personal example in my life would, you know, literally be like that first internship I got. Like for like a day or two, I was like really happy, but then like life caught up, and then I realized that like if you, I kind of live life for like those big milestones. Like life is really short, you know, and like a lot of your life is just gonna be little things like you doing the chores, you know, or like you talking to your friends or hanging out like way past midnight or something when you should have like slept early. And I think, you know, that's what makes life like really valuable, because like if you don't really have those like little things, then like even if you have like the big things, like it's still like very empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is kind of like, have you guys heard of the happiness treadmill? It's like you think, oh, if I reach this goal, then I'll be happy. So you reach that goal and you're not happy. So you're like, oh, if I reach this goal, then I'll be happy. So it's like you constantly chasing after a goal and like thinking that the goal will make you happy, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't really heard of this, but I feel like it's really applicable to body image. Like I feel like a lot of people like they're like, oh, if I cut like 10 pounds, I'll look better. And the 10 pounds lost, they come look at themselves like, oh, you know, maybe another 10 pounds. Or it's like, oh, I need like a little bit more muscle. Or it's like working out, like, oh, if I could like squat this much or like do this much. It's like it's exactly like that. You're just constantly like moving forward, trying to think you'll be happy when you aren't.
Yeah. And I think another aspect of being milestones driven is like once you reach it, sometimes you're just like, okay, I've hit this. I haven't thought about what I'm going to do after this. And now I'm just lost. And then you spent a bunch of time like figuring out like, oh, what should I do next? What is the next big milestone I'm going to hit? Whereas I feel like if you're more intentional day to day and you're like living by a certain process that you like subscribe by and believe in, then I think it's easier for you to figure out where you want to go next. And I think I'm like transitioning from being like a milestone driven person to like a process driven person. But I know friends who I think I've thought about before as like more spontaneous, like they just make decisions and they don't like think about it as much as like I do. But now I'm like, maybe they just like day to day, they know like what they want because they just do things that they enjoy and they know what they enjoy. So every little decision is like very easy for them because they're like, this is what I want. This is what I want. So when it comes to like a big milestone, they're like, yeah, this is what I want, because this is what they do every single day. So yeah, just now I was like, maybe I should be thinking about people that way.
Yeah, really solid. I think that like, I don't know. I now that you bring it up, I'm thinking about these types of people, like spontaneous people in my life. And it's like, maybe it does line up in that way. Like, do you feel like that, Michelle or Alex?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was always taught to be aggressive, or at least, you know, looking at people who seem to be successful, they're like, you know, it's a dog eat dog world mentality, you know, and you gotta just stand up for yourself. And then by nature, that is not my personality at all. I'm very passive. So I was like, oh, I will never be successful. And then I remember like kind of seeing people who would kind of just do whatever they want. I was like, I think the mentality that was ingrained to me was just like, oh, they're very carefree and irresponsible, and one day they'll get what's coming to them, right? As I suffer. And then I think, you know, as I get older, and especially what Jierui has said, it's like, yeah, I think it's like harmful to think like that. And like honestly, like they're literally living like their best life. You know, they're able to enjoy like what's going on, and they're I think they're also like a lot more, I guess, flexible, because I think a lot of times, like if you run into, when your plan falls apart, you kind of just give up. Like, slight spoilers if people haven't seen Parasite, there's like that moment when like the plan doesn't work out and he's just like, I don't care anymore, right? And I think for a lot of times, like in my own life, like I've definitely felt like that. So yeah, I think like, yeah, I guess I appreciate spontaneity in people more. And yeah, it's something like I guess I hope to just chill out and kind of do in my own life as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, like, as in trying to be a more chill person. I think what I think of most vividly when I think about that is like freshman year, right before like a big test, I would be hardcore studying for it, like studying for a very, very long time. And then I would see like on my story or Instagram story or something like that, like people who have the same test as me are like outside partying or like having fun and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, look at them not studying. They probably won't do well on the test, blah, blah, blah. But then it like turns out that we like get the same score or like they get the exact same out of me from like the class experience as I did, even though they like went out and did all this other stuff as well. So like instead of like having the plan like, oh, tonight I will just sit and study and do this stuff and I can't do anything else, like trying to live more in the moment, be more spontaneous, and like saying yes to stuff, trying to have more experiences is something that I've been working on.
Yeah, I think life in general has like played out in a very interesting way for me because like I feel like early on in college, like I met a lot of spontaneous people. And so what ends up happening is like I get dragged along to these things. It's like I could be doing something like studying, but then I was like, you know what? It's, you never know what's going to happen. And then like I go on these things, like for example, maybe I like go walk around downtown Austin at night. And we just like miss a bus. And it's like those experience in the moment, they're like, damn, what the fuck? We almost like had to like walk all the way back instead of missing this like almost last bus. And then it's like, look back on it very fondly, like with an air of nostalgia about it, even though it was like quote unquote suffering. It was like, you look back on those experiences that you did just like really randomly. It's like, for example, with your friends, you're like, you do something stupid and you're like, oh crap, how do I get out of this? But then you look back on it, you're like, damn, do you remember when we did this?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like something, definitely like the first 2 years of college, like I didn't really have too many of those experiences because I was too busy being scared that I would fail out CS or something, even though in the end it was like perfectly fine. And I think whenever people talk about that, like name an embarrassing story whenever you play games with your friends, like late nights or whatever, I would honestly just be like, honestly, I don't really have too many. Maybe there are embarrassing stories I have, but it's like there's so few, and like I think with the mentality I lived my life, like I suppressed it so that like now I just feel like I seem kind of boring, which I know it kind of contradicts like what we were talking about earlier, just like don't worry about what other people think of you, or don't care so much about your image. But it's like one of those things I was like, oh, like your mistakes really add color to your life, and it makes you appreciate like the successful things that you're able to do. Like if you always succeed and you have no failure, then like you're not really like learning from anything, right? Like sometimes like not getting what sometimes not getting what you want in life is like the best thing for you. And I think like the very conservative mentality I had in the past, where it was very much like, yeah, let's make no mistakes, and yeah, like why fail if you don't need to, And I think as I gotten older, I'm just like kind of going back to the chill thing. It's just like if I fail, I fail, and if I succeed, I succeed. But like just try to get something out of it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like junior and senior year, I've had a lot more of those experiences where I'm like, let's just see where the night takes us, and then something like weird happened, and it's something that you'll like always remember for the rest of your life. Like thinking back, I have no idea what I got in certain classes. Like I don't even remember what I learned in certain classes, but I will always remember those like really dumb moments where you think like, oh, you're going to be screwed, but then everything turns out fine and you get to share that experience with friends.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this the other day, and it was like sort of like the idea of like, I feel like when you do things with friends, just period, it makes the experience a lot better in your own head when you think about it. Because like, for example, like if you did something dumb on your own, you feel really regretful. You're like, damn, why did I do that? But then when you do it with friends, it's sort of like Alex said, adds an extra color to it. What do you guys feel about that?
I think I agree. I feel like that's why a lot of people are not really into this remote college experience. But yeah, I also feel like having other people there when you're doing something dumb is just a lot less stressful. You're like, okay, I can always rely on other people. I've noticed when I go out with other people, I don't double check or triple check my phone is charged or I have like a portable battery. I'm always like, yeah, someone else in the group. Well, my phone dies. Theirs, right? Which sometimes does not work out. But it's, I think, a lot more freeing knowing you have someone else to rely on than always having to rely on yourself, which is, I think, kind of my mentality that I had before. I'm like, I think in high school, I didn't really like study with people, right? That was something I had to figure out in college, like how to study with people, how to ask questions, and how to like ask for help. Because I was like, I'm just going to do this myself. It's just like easier. But I think it's a lot more reassuring to have someone else to like back you up. And yeah, figuring out how to ask for help is like a process.
Yeah, I also like very much enjoy doing stuff by myself, but I think it's like having friends to share that experience with, because for me, even if I do like something monumentally stupid on my own, I'll like share it to my friends, and then we'll like laugh about it together, and having that moment is also something that I cherish. So I think doing things by yourself is also important, and like knowing how to be by yourself and knowing how to be alone, but also like having friends that you can like share your experiences with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like knowing how to be by yourself, because I feel like I'm on the spectrum, right? Sometimes when I travel with people, I'm like, do we have to do this in a group? It's very, very bulky and like logistically complex, and like not everyone is going to agree with something. So yeah, I think it's a balance of figuring out what things you want to experience by yourself versus what do you want to. I think a nice thing is like I feel like I'm nostalgic a lot, and being nostalgic by yourself sometimes just feels kind of sad because it's like, oh, these good old days. But when you're nostalgic with someone else, it's like, oh, remember when we did this like shared experience? It's a lot nicer knowing someone else is alive. You.
Actually, so on this, I was watching a YouTuber named Anna Akana, and one of the things that she like really talks about in terms of like self-care is like being able to do things by yourself, and it's not just like small things. She's like you should learn how to like go on dates by yourself and do things of like sort of like romantic importance by yourself. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I
I
definitely.
feel very strongly. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say like that's something like I definitely had to like tell myself it's okay, and I haven't really like practiced it a lot. But I remember like there was like this concert I really wanted to go to, because like Daniel Caesar and Tyler the Creator, they both came into Austin, and I remember thinking, oh, I don't have any friends that are interested in this stuff or who like really like that type of music, so like I can't really go, you know. And I think I was like walking, and I think someone I was talking to was like, I mean, if you really like them, like why don't you just go by yourself? And I was like, that's a good point. And then I think the biggest reason why like I don't like try to do a lot of stuff by myself is like either A, it feels weird. Like I think there's a stigma like going to a movie by yourself like seems weird, or you know, like I just feel safer in the group. Like I think there's a lot of stuff for like, you know, maybe you're traveling or you're going to something maybe that requires like security, like a concert or like an event, and it just feels nice to be with like a friend, right? I think in a lot of ways is like there are a lot of times where like you don't know necessarily like where your community is, or if it's in transition, like you're moving cities or you're graduating from college to post grad, and I think it's really nice to, I guess, kind of do things by yourself, because like I guess at the end of the day is like you'll always be with you, you know. But like other people, like you know, they come and go, and I think it's also just nice to like just have that kind of self-assuredness that like, oh, like even if this looks weird to other people, like I'm having a good time and I'm enjoying it, and like that's what's important. But yeah, go on, Michelle.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that I used to like, there used to be a stigma, I feel, about doing things by yourself. Like I remember in high school, because I went to a high school that was at a college, so I would see like college people like doing stuff on their own, and I was always with my friends, and we'd be like, oh, look at that person eating alone, that's so sad. But then in college, I realized that I really enjoy eating alone. Like, I don't know, I feel like I enjoy food more when I eat alone. That's something that I do a lot. Like I just like go to a place by myself and I eat because I like doing it. And there are a lot of things that I actually prefer doing alone, but at the same time, I still feel like there is a stigma of like doing things on your own is like appearing lonely, like appearing you have no friends. And so that's actually something that I kind of have to be reminded a lot. So there are times when I'll like ask my boyfriend like, oh, do you want to go shopping with me? And he'll be like, why? You like shopping by yourself? And I'm like, you're right. So I just go by myself. But yeah, I definitely realize that like there are a lot of things that doing on your own, and it might just be because like I think I'm more introverted. So like there are a lot of things I prefer doing on my own, and like knowing how to and like getting over doing stuff by yourself is definitely something that I'd recommend.
I will say there is like definitely a societal perception, and I feel like with me, I've encountered more people who seem to like feel sorry for me or feel like they need to take care of me. Like an example was like I was eating at a restaurant like by myself in Switzerland, and like this older couple next to me, like I guess they felt really bad because they were like, do you want any of our food? Do you want to try it? I was like, I am fine here. And I think like on airplanes or whatever, it's like a lot easier to get people to like assist you with bags if they think you're like alone. So it's like a positive but also a negative. Like people are really nice to you, but it's also like I am okay with this.
Yeah, I actually recently went to go watch a movie by myself, and like I like when I sat down. Okay, to be fair, to preface this, I wore a mask the entire time and it was socially distanced. But, I went to go watch a movie by myself, and I saw a lot of couples there. So it's like whenever you get a seat, it automatically sections off the seats like next to it, unless like you buy it like together like this, right? And so I saw a lot of couples. So when I sat down, like I felt really unusual about it. But then after the movie started, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm here for the movie. I'm not here for someone else. Like who cares?
It's interesting. I have not been to a movie theater in so long, so it's good to know what it's like.
Yeah. I've actually heard going to a movie by yourself is a really fun experience. I just have not experienced yet because I don't generally go to movies.
Yeah, I feel like I would like figure out a way to watch it online or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like when I want to watch something by myself, I'll do that in my room, you know, like by myself rather than go out and, you know, go to a movie theater and watch something. But I heard like it's a different experience, like going to a movie theater by yourself versus like watching it alone in your room, which makes sense. And like makes sense that it would be more enjoyable.
What do you think?
Yeah.
It felt more grand. Part of the reason why I went to go watch it is because like it's something that like wouldn't come out online for a while, and so I was like, I have to see this, and I've been wanting to see this, right? And so I went to go see it, and it's like I feel like watching in the movie theater, there's like an aspect of it. It's like the surround sound. It's like a large screen. Like things are way louder. Like it just feels like you're getting more of an experience, and I guess that's what you pay for when you pay for a movie ticket, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that like there are definitely like some movies like, you know, for a lot of like Christopher Nolan stuff like Interstellar or Dunkirk, like it's like IMAX and very much like you want to be like kind of immersed in the film where it's almost like you are a part of like the film itself, right? Like for maybe in Dunkirk, like you are a soldier trying to escape and you don't know if you're gonna survive or not. And I think it's like pretty interesting how like I think maybe for like some people like watching movies is just like something to pass the time, but for other people like it's something like it's like an event to go to, right? And I remember like for like Marvel movies when phase one was or whatever phase it was, when up to and Endgame was still a thing. Like I think watching like the movies was more than just like watching the movie in of itself. It was literally kind of like a big event where you can get like all your friends to come with you, and it was kind of like I think especially since like a lot of the Avengers films came out in like May, it was like a end of the year event basically for like me and my friends. And I remember like because I didn't really want to watch movies by myself, there'd be like movies where like if I wasn't invited or I was too busy, like I would just not watch the movie for the longest time. And then I guess like kind of what Ben, something like what Ben was saying earlier was just like, oh, this won't come out online for a long time. Like I gotta watch this movie. Maybe kind of thing like, yeah, like if you really like want to do something, like just go for it. And you know, even if like you're afraid that people are gonna judge you, like they're probably just strangers, and you will never see them again.
Yeah. I think to me, the act of going to the movie seems like an intentional act of friendship, like we were talking about earlier. Like something I would normally watch by myself or do on my own. I want an excuse to like go out with a group of people. So, you know, you like find a movie that you think people will enjoy. And that becomes like an excuse. Like I've definitely gone to movies where I did not particularly care for them, but because I'm like, social with my friends and I like appreciate this like group that people have assembled and the social work people have done, I like go, even though I don't care for the movie. But it's more for like that type of like keeping in touch with people.
Yeah, what do you guys think about traveling by yourself? Because that's also something that I kind of want to do, but as usual, my parents were like, oh, it's so dangerous for you to travel by yourself, blah, 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 blah. But I did, like, one of my summer internships was in Chicago, and I didn't really know anyone there, and I wasn't, like, really close with any of the people I was interning with. So I spent the entire summer, like, exploring Chicago by myself, and that's something that I do look back on very fondly, even though, like, it's by myself, and even though I like didn't really talk about it to anyone, like I didn't tell my friend like, oh, today I went to this place and this place and this place, blah blah blah. But it's definitely something that I think about very fondly still.
I think traveling domestically by yourself is very good, but traveling internationally by yourself, it could be good or it could be very bad. I think it's a bad experience. Like before going to college, I went to China by myself because like me and my family were going to Thailand, and my parents were like, do you want to go to China to visit your cousins, right? It was like going from there to there by myself. And it's like, I was like, holy moly, like I don't speak the language. This is super bad. Like I got lost. It just all looks like symbols to me. People are trying to talk to me and I don't know what they're saying. So generally it's pretty good, but like, I guess it's because like I have the privilege of being male. So it's like, my parents aren't as worried about me traveling by myself, and I probably will not be preyed on. But it's like, I think in general, like you should, like if you want to travel by yourself internationally, I would recommend domestically first and then internationally.
Yeah, I think for me it really depends on your travel partner. Like if your travel partner is going to weigh you down, then it's better to be traveling by yourself. I'm very opinions about this. No, because I think it's like if you have two people, I feel like you have to like mesh well with your travel partner. You have to have like similar interests or similar levels of comfort and like risk. Because if you're like traveling with someone who's like more risky or like maybe less capable of like navigating the international environment, if you're traveling internationally, not only do you have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of like the other person. If you're looking for the other person for like comfort and safety, then that's like, I feel like for me that's an even more dangerous situation than if you were only responsible for yourself. But like I think for me the ideal travel group size is like 2 to like 4 people, and I think if I felt like I was capable in a country and I didn't see like a lot of great options in terms of travel partners, I feel like traveling by yourself like would not be a problem. But yeah, choose your travel partners carefully.
Yeah, I haven't really traveled that much, honestly. I feel like most of my traveling has been with family, which is like a very different experience. Like, I feel like at least with my family, it's very much like, all right, you know, try to go to like every, I don't know, landmark in the city and make sure there's like Asian Chinese food in the area. And then,
oh yeah.
yeah, I haven't really traveled with friends that much. Like I've been to like conferences with my friends, or like I remember in high school I had like an orchestra trip to Chicago, but that was still very much like you still have to kind of be in like the area or like the reason why you're at the event. So I'm like kind of hesitant to call that like traveling per se. But I think for me is like I've always been kind of scared to travel alone because I have a lot of food allergies. And if I don't speak the language at a certain place, then I'm screwed. I know like some people get by somehow. But I guess like for me, it's something like I guess I worry about, and like I guess maybe like having like a friend with me is like a little assuring. Like obviously like the friend would like need to be close or like understand, I guess. But yeah, I feel like in like some cases like yeah, I would be kind of be that travel partner like you need to be aware about and like I guess consent to traveling with me. But yeah, other than that, I guess I like the idea of traveling, but I think maybe because of those like restrictions, like it's not something I've particularly done a lot of.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that like came up. So me and Alex we're planning to go to Japan over this summer. I think Michelle as well. But it's like we were thinking about like our travel group, right? And we were thinking about like what should like it's not that we were like trying to intentionally not invite people, but like I think a really interesting thing is like
Yeah.
sort of like figuring out the dynamic of your group. Like, do you think like you could stay with these people for like however long, like constantly together?
Yeah. And like I feel like normal daily like personality issues you might have that you're like fine with, like they get magnified. Like when you have a visa issue, when you're like stuck in an airport and like flights canceled, or like you're trying to communicate to someone who doesn't understand you. Like all of these are like magnified a lot. So things you daily could like let it's yeah, you have to get along really well with people or go to a very easy country to travel through.
Yeah, I definitely think that the idea of traveling with a large group of friends sounds very fun in theory, but in practice, it's like not very practical and not very fun. But yeah, so it's like better to travel with like one or two people or like a small group of people who you vibe well with and are very compatible with you. So during one of my spring break trips, when we went to like some tropical island with a group of friends, and these friends like I'm very very close with, and of course like I love them. We're like really great friends. I'm very very close with them and everything. But I found over the course of the week that as people we were just like very different people, and so even though like they're like great friends and I love hanging out with them and everything, I found out that like over the course of the week that I could not spend like an entire week with them and not get tired. Like I had to have my own alone time. Whereas there's another friend that I travel with who I think we had more similar personalities, and we've had like more similar interests and hobbies, and like I think level of energy was very similar, and that I found that I could travel with her for a much longer period of time without feeling the need to like isolate myself and have like that alone time. So I think like besides the group dynamic and like compatibility of travel partners is very important when you travel.
And I think another option is like if you want like a mix between traveling by yourself or like traveling with friends. There's definitely been times where I've planned like trips with multiple legs, and I'll like meet up with people in like this country and this city and like maybe stay with them for a week and go somewhere else and then meet up with someone else. And like I feel like those times it doesn't give you enough time to get really irritated at someone with like for issues, or I think then you can capture like the fun of like going through a new experience with a friend without having to deal with like major difficulties. And you get kind of like your freedom and your independence for doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I just think in general, traveling with friends is like it's a very different experience than traveling with your family. And like prior to the later parts of college, I hadn't really done it. And so when I went and did it, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like you don't have to go see every landmark in the city. Take hella pictures. You don't have to like do all this stuff. You just sort of like leisurely do it. And it's like you can have an itinerary, right? It's like you don't have to go through it. There's nothing that forces you to go through everything. You can just be like, hey, whatever. It's not that important. We can skip it or something like that. I think that's like the major advantage of traveling with your friends.
Yes, traveling with family is a whole other sphere.
Yeah, for sure. I remember I was right before quarantine hit. Like I was supposed to go on like a spring break trip with some of my friends from college, but uh, and like there was all these plans. Like we were gonna be in some cabin in the middle of nowhere, and yeah. But then I think like once COVID hit, I think we were having like this debate basically where like, is it safe to still go? Like it's in the middle of nowhere. Technically, we're isolated, and this is kind of around the time where like COVID. COVID was even less understood than it was today. I don't want to say we understand COVID super well now, but I think yeah, it was kind of just like the idea of like, oh, like well, we should just go anyway, right? Like this is our last time, and eventually we canceled. But I remember it was like really hard because like A, that would have been like my first trip with friends, and then B, it was we were probably, I mean, some of us had a feeling that like school would be basically online right after spring break because initially it was just like, oh, it's just 2 weeks, and I think having to say no to that was like really hard for like everyone involved. But yeah, hopefully at some point in the future we can travel again. I don't know how soon that will be, but yeah.
Retrospectively, actually, me and some other friends were also thinking of doing something similar to Alex. Thinking back about it, I was like, honestly, that was probably the best time to have gone because it's like COVID was like very few in number in the US, and it's like it hadn't like really penetrated the inner parts of the US yet. So it was like that was probably like one of the better times to have gone and done it.
I think for me it was like just really rapidly escalating. Like for context, this all happened within like the course of a week. So on Thursday, MIT like canceled all international sponsored travel. So I was like planning a conference in France, and I was like, okay, guess not doing that. But then I had like legs afterwards where I was gonna like meet up with people for like spring break, right? And I had like legs beforehand where I was gonna like take a week off school and like do some travel in the US, and I was gonna go to Canada and like go to World's Figure Skating. It was like a lot of interdependent steps that like when I planned, I was like, everything needs to work out. And then when MIT canceled, I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Do I still do the other legs? And then I had this like half hope. I'm like, maybe like COVID will just decide for me and I won't have to make these hard decisions. And half of me was like, no, I want to go on these trips. Like I want to do this. But it just like progressively escalated. Like 3 days later, it was like, okay, I'm just not going to go to Europe. Maybe I'll still go to Canada. Maybe I'll go to Austin. And then it was like, nope, I'm not going to go to Canada. Maybe I'll still go to Austin. And then it just became, nope, I'm just going to fly home as soon as possible. It was kind of relieving in a sense for me because I was like, I have all these like things I have to keep track of, and because all these little details keep getting like messed up or canceled, it was just too much to try and like pull together again. So it was almost a relief when something else made the decision for me and I don't have to like regret personal decisions that I made because it was all out of my control, which I guess is
Yeah, for me, my mom, actually, when I was planning my spring break trip back in January, my mom was all like, no, you can't go on spring break trip because of the coronavirus. And I was like, ha ha ha, you're being silly. Like, that's not even a thing. But she like kept calling me and kept nagging me. So I was like, fine, I guess I'll just stay in New York over spring break. But even then, I planned to like, go eat at restaurants and like go watch Broadway shows and stuff like that. And then spring break, or like it started getting closer and closer to spring break, and my mom was right. And I was like, oh my God, like everything's happening the way she said it would happen. So I was pretty lucky, I guess, that I never planned a spring break trip, but also I left New York before spring break could happen. Broadway closed down, restaurants weren't working. So
oh my God,
still hit a different way.
Because I met up with Michelle in New York and we were talking about like our future plans, and she was like telling her mother's story, and I remember thinking at that time, I was like, what? That's so far off. Like that makes absolutely no sense. And then there was that petition to get like South by Southwest canceled, and I was like, it probably won't happen. And now, yeah. So many things.
But yeah, actually,
how was my intuition so off?
I remember back in February, my parents were like, we'll be lucky if we can make it to Michelle's graduation because of the coronavirus. And I was like, you guys are over-exaggerating. And then a month later, they canceled graduation. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, to this day, my dad still flames me whenever like I like do something, like I go out and like I don't really listen. He's like, remember the time when you didn't think like masks were effective because like the like the U.S. Surgeon General said like we don't need to wear masks. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry for trusting the medical authorities in the U.S. And then I was like, yeah, I guess he has a point, because I know like a lot of her parents, like they were kind of around during like SARS and maybe even MERS. So I was like, well, yeah, I guess it pays to listen to your parents.
It was really like a generational thing. Like suddenly our parents were like overprotective or like very cautious or right, and now I'm reevaluating all of my behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I went to SF in early February for like a thing with my dance coworkers, and at the time my mom was like telling me like, dude, you gotta watch out for this coronavirus. It's this thing happening in China. I was like, dude, what the hell is that? Like you should go like wear some gloves on the plane, like wear a mask. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm gonna look so weird, like no. And then this happens, I was like, oh shit.
Wait, I was flying back from Jordan in January, and my mother made me go buy a mask in Jordan, and I was like, I feel like I'm gonna get kicked off the plane because I'm being profiled before coronavirus. Like they're gonna be like, this small Asian chick, why is she wearing a mask? Get off the plane, right? But when I was like flying through Spain, there was barely anyone on the plane, so I don't know what that was like. Were international travelers more prescient at the time? But I had like a whole aisle to myself, which never happens. And this was in January.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't even really remember like when coronavirus like hit. I remember like knowing it kind of existed in January. Like I know it was literally like happening into like December in China, but then I guess like all of a sudden it just got super big in March. I just remember like not taking it seriously until the NBA got canceled, and then literally everything got canceled, and I was like, wow, my life is changing.
Yeah. I remember I also didn't really take it that seriously. I remember it was just something that we were using to get our midterms canceled. Like, oh, we're so scared of the coronavirus and we're like so stressed we can't take these midterms. And then our midterms ended up getting canceled. But then everything else got canceled and we're like, wait, no, stop. And then I remember because it was really big in New York. Yeah, when I was riding the subway, like I still rode the subway. No one was wearing masks. And on the street, no one was wearing a mask. And I was like, maybe I should wear a mask. But like no one was wearing it. And people are like, oh, masks actually don't help you at all. And like you need to like save the mask for the surgeons, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, it doesn't seem like as big of a deal. Like it'll probably be over in a few months. But yet it is still not.
Yeah, this is August 18th, mind you. So,
yeah, I do not have any winter clothes here because I did not expect to be spending winter here. My clothes.
Wait, is your stuff still not shipped back to you?
So most of the stuff I packed in my dorm, MIT shipped back, but that was all like stuff I wasn't afraid of being like damaged or like broken and not temperature sensitive. But like all of my important things I stored with a friend because originally we were only allowed 5 boxes, but they upgraded it to 8. I already stored it with a friend. But now I'm like, how do I get my stuff back from her? I guess I could ship it back, but not there yet. We'll see.
But yeah, to start wrapping things up, we sort of like to end on a COVID-related question anyway. And it's like, what are your plans post-corona?
Get out of the country.
I can't even imagine life post-corona.
Dude, I don't know. Go organic farming in New Zealand. Buy a van. Live a van life.
I mean, I guess continue my original plan, which was to work in my job and travel a lot and get all those traveling points because consulting requires a lot of travel. I really wanted to like go to a different city every weekend and like go to Hawaii for a weekend or something like that. So I guess just travel a lot and see where things take me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fun once you can do that. But yeah, for sure. Anyway, this is Nuanced Nonsense. We're not experts. We just like talking. Signing out.